Hi, and a warm welcome to the latest edition of Celerity Talks. I'm James Green, and I'm the host today. I'm joined by Ian Shave, who's Director of Flash Systems Worldwide. Hi, Ian.
Hi.
It's great to follow up with another session. Hopefully, lots of you who have joined today will have listened into previous sessions, and hopefully you'll join us again for future sessions. The main area of discussion that we're going to spend the next 15 minutes or so talking around today is cyber resiliency. Ian being at the forefront of much of what goes on within IBM, and with his role in the Flash Systems Group, clearly cyber resiliency underpins a lot of the conversations that I'm sure you're having on a daily basis at the minute.
Absolutely.
As I'm sure you're all aware and working through within your own organisations, cyber resiliency is becoming at the forefront of many people's discussions, and it's a strategy discussion that's taking place right from board level down through the organisations. We've seen over the last 18 months or so, with the change in people's working now, which was obviously as a result of COVID, but the continual and digitisation of lots of organisations, and latterly now with the conflicts that's happening around the world, and the nation state situation, where cyber resiliency now really is a conversation that is having to happen right across the board. So I think it's really pertinent today that we spend the next few minutes talking around, I guess, why, firstly, organisations are looking for that cyber resiliency strategy, and then breaking that out and using Ian's experience as to what IBM are doing and Celerity are doing in this space, and how ultimately we can help organisations like yourself. So if I jump in, so cybersecurity, obviously, it's a fairly well-known term to lots of organisations. Everyone has got a high-level understanding of what it means. But I suppose the first question is, how would you define cyber resiliency, and how would IBM look to define it?
So I think the easiest way to think about it, if I start with cybersecurity, in really simplistic terms, cybersecurity is, imagine the locks on the doors. You're putting locks on the doors, you're trying to make it secure, you're trying to stop people getting in. Cyber resiliency is, so what happens once they're broken in? My locks are broken, I now need my goods back. That's the easiest way to try and sort of think of it. And what we're actually trying to talk about is how that evolves into a data resilient strategy. Because I think most people around sort of IT, certainly storage, they've been used to talking about data protection. And we're now trying to ensure they become data resilient. So we're trying to bring data protection and cyber resilience together, so that the resiliency is absolutely, I've been attacked, how do I actually recover? Can I recover? How quickly can I actually recover that data? I think that's the kind of the easiest way to sort of think about it.
So really evolving as an entity, I guess, now. So I mean, when we look at and we talk to, I'm sure you're talking the same messaging to your customers. I mean, it's somewhat of a daunting challenge, isn't it, for lots of organisations? Even organisations that are through that maturity level within their cybersecurity strategies. I mean, there's a lot that kind of comes under the umbrella of cybersecurity. Where do companies even start with implementing a cyber resiliency strategy? And then the tools behind it.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, it's accepting that a customer needs cyber resiliency, because I think a lot of them, because they've done cybersecurity thing, I've got the locks, or I've built the brick wall, whichever way you want to look at it, I've stopped people getting in. I'm good.
For sure.
And we've seen, unfortunately, far too many customers that have done that. We've seen huge investments, obviously, in cybersecurity over the last few years. And an awful lot of security officers have invested very heavily in that space. I mean, and rightly so. We're not saying they shouldn't have done or that it's not required. Obviously, you want to try and stop the bad actors getting in as much as you can. But there has to be the acceptance that, unfortunately, no security solution, and obviously IBM has got a really fantastic security solution, cybersecurity solutions. But there has to be an acceptance that nothing can be absolute. The attackers are playing very, very clever games. They're being very intelligent, unfortunately, and they're always finding new ways to actually attack. I mean, let's be honest, these days they're sort of ransomware on demand, if you like, or ransomware as a service, I should say, unfortunately. So it's become all too common. And so, it's ensuring that or accepting that you need that cyber resilient capability. And I think a lot of our initial conversations are very much about helping people understand that their traditional practices are actually not going to be good enough. So like backups, people go, well, I've got backups, and you go, well, very often those are targeted first. They take away the ability to back up because then they know they've got you.
So I guess there's somewhat of an acceptance then that we've implemented the tools, we've done our best to stop the threats coming into the organisation, but we've got to accept that they will get in. They probably are already in. So actually now, how do we recover, sensibly from that? So, and I guess an interesting kind of question there that I can pose if I can. When we talk to a lot of the organisations and they've started to build out this strategy, many of them are trying to ascertain what areas of the business need to be involved in that strategy, and who actually drives that cyber resiliency strategy within the organisation.
Well, I think it very much falls across two camps now, because we're seeing traditional IT obviously are responsible for making sure those IT systems are available, making sure the data is available, making sure the business keeps running. But they are very much responsible for that. But we've seen obviously an awful lot more now that there are security practices as well. So it's kind of the security practice and the IT people. And in fact, for a while we thought it really was going to be the kind of the security officers more so than anybody else, and maybe the IT admin wasn't the right person to speak to. But what we've really been seeing is it really is all of them. I mean, it's kind of CIO, the IT admin, it's kind of the broad spectrum, because the IT administrator, of course, with all these new security tools, is the one that ends up having to implement them and manage them.
Of course.
And they're crying out for, how can I integrate these things together? So actually what I don't end up doing is making my management overheads worse, and in reality end up making things more complex. That's the last thing any of them want. So we really do find it's across kind of all of that. I think we've seen, IT budgets typically have not been growing for a large number of years, unfortunately, but we have seen obviously there are different budgets when it comes to cyber resiliency right now. Yeah. So I think bringing those two together and saying, I know you made the investments to try and stop the bad actors, but let's make sure we've got you prepared for what happens if.
Yeah, so and I'll come back in a minute if I can to that discussion around IBM's capabilities in this space. So I guess leading on from that, once you're talking to the different stakeholders within the organisation, what would you say is the key to getting the cyber resiliency strategy right within an organisation?
So I think it's, first of all, obviously we can work with customers to sort of help them do that, and obviously with people like yourselves, with customers to help them understand where those, issues are and what the scale of them is. But I think with a lot of companies, they've probably already done an awful lot of the work themselves to a certain extent, because, this is, that's why I kind of talked about data resiliency. It's the next evolution of a data protection strategy. So they've already worked out which are the critical applications that they need to have running, what the cost is to them when those aren't available for certain periods of time. So they've kind of got a lot of the groundwork already there. Yeah. What we then really need to work with those clients on is understanding the exposures and which of those systems actually are most susceptible, and the codependencies of those systems. So I don't really see it as there's a off the shelf, hey, buy a package and it's all going to be taken care of, because it's like with anything. For some critical applications where you want them, you can't afford to have them down, it's going to cost, in reality, that costs a little bit more than something that's, you can take your time restoring. Yeah. But it really goes from end to end, because there is the stuff for critical applications which are for day to day, and then, how do I actually take care of, archive data that maybe you don't need online, but you certainly don't want to lose.
Of course. And I think you've just touched on it slightly, as part of the response to the previous question. I mean, what are you seeing as some of the kind of critical business outcomes if you're not having a robust cybersecurity and cyber resiliency strategy in place?
It's kind of twofold, to be honest. There's, unfortunately, and they're all in the press, or an awful lot of them are in the press. In fact, I was looking at a report the other day where it talks about how many different companies by industry have been attacked. And of course, it says with a caveat at the bottom, these are just the ones we know about, because obviously not everyone talks about it publicly. Of course. But the scope of the impact can be actually very significant. There's a very easy to define cost, as in if your systems aren't available, if you can't trade. I mean, there was a large supermarket chain last year in the UK that got attacked. Their systems weren't available for 4 or 5 days, so they couldn't take online orders, they couldn't do home deliveries. So there's that sort of easily tangible cost impact.
Yep.
But then there was reputational damage, because obviously then all over social media was everybody talking about, where's my delivery, where's my food? I think there was one extreme example where obviously their systems obviously got corrupted and someone ended up with an awful lot of soda, a popular soda drink, turning up, and that was their groceries for the week. So it's sort of the reputational damage, which can be huge. In fact, there was another one literally only a couple of weeks ago, and the estimate was, from their ransomware attack, the estimate was £200 million worth of value would be knocked off their company.
Wow.
And I think that's the real sort of eye-opener, if you like. So so what happens if you just can't trade?
Yes.
You know, what is the impact to your business? And of course, ultimately, the other thing is they could try and pay the ransom, but the current average cost for paying out ransoms is now, what, $5.4 million? I don't know what it is in pounds because I can't do the conversion, but yeah, the reports show it in dollars at the moment, and it's 5.4 million is the average.
Yeah. So clearly, you know, commercial exposure to an organisation, but maybe more so as well, reputational exposure.
Absolutely.
Moving forward. So I guess then, leading on from there, how are IBM helping business with cyber resiliency? Clearly, IBM, you know, is known in the cybersecurity space. Lots of tools, lots of capabilities, lots of. But how and what specifically are you doing to help organisations? And also, how would an organisation maybe start the journey with IBM when they're looking at a cyber resiliency strategy?
So in terms of what we're offering, I mean, for a while we've had cyber resilient capabilities for kind of medium to long-term data retention and recovery, if I can put it that way. So we've got great solutions for that and have done for quite some time. What we've now introduced is the ability for rapid recovery for those critical applications. So those applications where if it's down for a day, that's, you know, that's going to be costing the kind of the money and reputational impacts. So that's what we've really been bringing out now. It's this new CyberVault solution that really helps customers with really rapid recovery. So we can get it down to being sort of hours, you know, rather than days or even weeks, because the current industry average for recovery is 23 days.
Wow.
And again, you think the cost impact to that, you know, supermarket 4 or 5 days. 23 days is the average across the industry of outage to try and rebuild and recover data when it's been encrypted. And
I suppose for many organisations, you know, smaller organisations, they couldn't sustain that for that period of time.
Absolutely. I mean, the cost, as we said, it's the cost and the damage, and particularly for small business, their reputation is kind of their key differentiator, if you like, very often. So yes, the impact to them would be huge.
So you mentioned briefly, in terms of any assessments, in terms of a first engagement, how and what can IBM/Celerity offer there?
So obviously we've got some great assessment methodologies, if you like. So one that we actually have got is our cyber resiliency assessment tool. So nice and simple, nice low touch. It doesn't have to be, you know, days and weeks and months of consultancy to try and work something out. And that one really, I always view as that's really to help with I often refer to it as a bit of an aha moment for the customers to understand. So am I exposed? Because as I said, a lot of people, they've got their data protection, so they think, well, I'm good, you know, and I've got my locks on the door, so I'm already safe. And it's helping understand where those risks lie and what the impacts of some of those would actually be.
Fine.
So that's a kind of the kind of high level assessment, helps them, as I said, have that aha moment. And then we actually have obviously a cyber resiliency architecture workshop as well, and that really then gets into the meat of determining which are the right applications. And all of this is backed by a blueprint that we created for CyberVault, which of course, you know, Celerity, you know, can work with, and same with those assessments. You know, we can actually have access to how you actually go do those assessments with the customers as well.
Great, okay. So, I mean, lots of organisations, clearly resource is a problem, staff resource, especially in the cyberspace. Are you finding that organisations are struggling with resource? And I guess the likes of IBM and Celerity, through potentially managed services and the ability to manage people's organisations' environments now, are you finding that is of a problem area?
a problem to the customer, I think. Yes, not for obviously for IBM or Celerity, but yes. So I think it's the skills, isn't it? It's the uncertainty of the skills. And the thing I don't want to frighten anybody into thinking is that you have to suddenly pay for expensive services to do anything. If people have got the skills, and of course they can do it. But I think the great value IBM and obviously with Celerity can bring is for those customers that don't have the right skills, are concerned about resources.
Yes.
We can absolutely help with those. So we can put that together. We can help design to the blueprint, and ultimately actually end up where we're really trying to take it with cyber is automating it all as well. So actually, it could initially be being managed for them, eventually being automated, so actually could potentially even be handed back because we make it so incredibly simple for them.
Great, okay. So any closing advice for organisations listening today?
Honestly, I would really just say for any customers, it's really about come and have an assessment. Come and have one of these assessments. Make contact with Celerity, go through that cyber resiliency assessment tool, have the team walk you through that methodology so we can help you understand your risks and then can obviously help identify the right solutions for you. We're not a one solution fits all. We have many, and that's the great thing. So we can use the assessments to determine what is the right thing for that customer to ensure that they don't have a big impact when unfortunately the inevitable happens and they get attacked.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, Ian. It's been good to chat to you today. So as Ian said, I mean, the first point of call from a Celerity and IBM perspective is please get in touch with us. We can look to have a conversation around our assessments. I'm sure that would be a great way for us to start helping you to either build or build out that cyber resiliency strategy. And hopefully you'll join us again soon. As I say, it's been really great having Ian on the sofa with me today, and see you all soon. Bye.